Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today I'm going to be telling you all about the 12 books that have been on my physical TBR for the longest time. If you watched my statistics video a couple of weeks ago, you will know that I am doing a little sort of tops and bottoms challenge in my TBRs. I didn't do a TBR video for January, but I would like to do one for the remaining 11 months in the year. In this little challenge or prompt, I want to read one of the books that has been on my TBR for the longest time and one of my newest acquisitions. So a book that was in my most recent book haul. There is a little bit of guesstimation going on with the books that have been on my TBR for the longest time. A lot of books say the 6th of March 2016, and I remember this day because it was the day that I sorted out my Goodreads almost 3 years ago. So there are actually more than 12 books on my unread physical books shelf on Goodreads that have been there since 2016, but with some educated guessing, I think these 12 are the 12 that have been on my TBR for the longest time. So my thought process is that I read one of these per month, but I think I might actually end up doing more than that because thinking about these books has really reawoken my excitement to read them. So anyways, yeah, I'm just going to get into the books. I actually have already read one of them because I read one of them in January. And that was When God Was a Rabbit by Sarah Winman. I remember picking this one up in a charity shop, and I think most of these are charity shop finds that I picked up when I had my own dispensable income for the first time. This was a combination of a cover buy, but also this title is so intriguing. I have another Sarah Winman book on my shelf now, Tin Man, and after reading this one, I'm so excited to read that one as well. So we've already got one ticked off the list. Next, we have an anthology of short stories, New Irish Short Stories, edited by Joseph O'Connor. These aren't exactly new anymore. I think this was released in 2011, and I think there is a new version of this book coming out this year of, you know, new Irish short stories. But I think I'll definitely be picking this one up during the Irish Readathon in March. Next we have a memoir, and it is Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert. You've probably heard about this one. As far as I am aware, this is Elizabeth Gilbert's memoir about going through a divorce and going traveling after that and kind of finding herself. I feel like it's one of those rites of passage books that you kind of have to read as a young woman, so I'm really looking forward to this one. Next we have Billy and Me by Giovanna Fletcher. I have read one Giovanna Fletcher book before, You're the One That I Want, and I quite enjoyed it. I thought it was quite a good palate cleanser. It wasn't a book that would ever make it anywhere near a favourites book list for me, but I enjoyed it nonetheless, and I'm sure I'll enjoy this one as well. And I also have the sequel to this as well, which I think is called Always With Love. Next we have White Teeth by Zadie Smith. I have read one of Zadie Smith's later novels. This is her first one. I read Swing Time, and I thought it was okay, but every time I hear someone talk about this book, they talk about how phenomenal it is. It's basically on track to become a classic. It is studied on a lot of school curriculums, so it's about time I get round to reading it. Next up we have The Accidental by Ali Smith. I discovered Ali Smith at university when I read There But For The, and I really enjoyed it, and I've gone on to read a couple more of her books as well. But I think when I first discovered her writing, I kind of binged a few of her books, and I don't find Ali Smith books that easy. They do take a lot of brain power for me to get through, so I think I kind of exhausted myself with her writing for a little bit, and that's why this one got pushed to the back of the shelf, as it were. But I've had a nice little break from reading Ali Smith books. I think I've probably read like 4 or 5 of her other books. But yeah, now that I've had a little break from her writing, I'm ready to get back into it. A similar thing happened with this next author, although it's a very different style of writing. And this next one is Will Grayson by John Green and David Levithan. I don't think I've ever read anything by David Levithan, which really surprises me. But I've read quite a lot of John Green. John Green is one of the writers that got me back into reading when I was a teenager. I sort of binge read a lot of his books and ended up with John Green fatigue. I remember loving Looking for Alaska. I really enjoyed The Fault in Our Stars, and I hated Paper Towns and An Abundance of Catherines. So by the time I got around to reading Will Grayson, I just didn't want to do it anymore. I think my reading tastes have definitely evolved a lot since I read all of those John Green books. But I hear, even from people who aren't massive fans of John Green's writing, that they've actually quite enjoyed Will Grayson. I'm terrified of reading Looking for Alaska again because I enjoyed it so much. I have a feeling that I'm really not going to enjoy it on a reread. So hopefully this will pacify my desire to go back to some of John Green's writing and see what I think of it. Next up, we have The Diary of a Young Girl, which is Anne Frank's memoir. This is the puffin teenage version, and it says it has previously unpublished material in it. I know there are a lot of different versions of Anne Frank's diary available, and I'm not sure where this one falls in, you know, accuracy or including all of the material available. But yeah, I think this is just one of those books that you really should read. I think it's a really important book, so I'm surprised I've not picked this one up yet. Next up, we have Perfect by Rachel Joyce. I did try and read this one last year and I got 100 pages in. Well, I think it was like literally like 99 pages. But I think I just wasn't in the right headspace to pick up a novel of this size. It's not massive, but I think I just had a really short attention span at that time in my life. I've read 2 Rachel Joyce books before and I really enjoyed them, so this isn't a permanent DNF. I definitely want to get around to reading this one. Next up, I have Mohsin Hamid's Moth Smoke. I discovered this author in my first year of university. I read The Reluctant Fundamentalist and I really enjoyed that book. So this is the reason that I picked this one up when I saw it, and I've since read another of his books, Exit West, which I enjoyed less but did still enjoy. And I think there are quite a few books on this list that are by authors who I have read other works from, and I think that's probably the reason why they've survived for this long. Like with some other books that have been on my shelves for that amount of time and I haven't read them, I've ended up unhauling them. But because I have quite a few books on this list that are from authors that I'd read before, I do have a level of confidence that I will enjoy their work. I think this one, like The Reluctant Fundamentalist, is set in Pakistan as well, so I'm really looking forward to reading this one. I've read quite a few books from that region of the world. Next up, we have The Kite Runner, and this has very almost been unhauled several times, but has always managed to survive every cull. I think the reason I haven't picked this one up, I think it's because I feel a huge amount of pressure to like it. It's such a highly acclaimed book. I know so many people who have read it and think it's one of the best books ever. And I think that puts a huge amount of pressure on the book, or it puts pressure on me as a reader to get the same amount of value from it. Does anyone else get that, where a book is just so massively hyped that you feel pressure to read it? Or not necessarily pressure to read it, but pressure to like it once you have read it. But I've kept hold of it for so long now and I just need to read it. Final book I have, I think that was 12 anyway, is Daughter by Jane Shemilt. This one is a thriller and it's about a daughter that goes missing. I remember buying this one and it was definitely part of that time in my life when I had dispensable income for the first time, and it was a bit of a cover buy, to be honest. The cover really intrigued me. I'm really like into dolls houses. I didn't read any thrillers in that time of my life. Like, it's only now that I'm really gradually getting into thrillers, so I'm not sure why I bought this one. But it has survived all of my book unhauls over the years, so I think Thrillerathon in February will be the perfect time for me to finally read this one. And I will do a full separate TBR for Thrillerathon as well. So that's it. They are all the books that have been on my TBR for the longest. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these books before and if you have any encouragement for me to pick these books up. This pile will definitely be read by the end of the year. I'm saying it here now. It's gonna happen. It's not like when I normally say things about reading books by a particular time and then don't do it. This is actually gonna happen. I'll do another version of this video, I guess in a year's time, or if I manage to read these books before the year is out, then I will do it whenever that happens. And obviously there will be a new set of 12 then. Anyways, that's all I'm going to talk about today. As I said, do leave any thoughts that you have down below in the comments, and all of these books will be linked in the description box as well. I hope you guys are having a brilliant day, and I will talk to you in my next video.